What if the most dangerous animal in Africa wasn't a lion, leopard, or crocodile, but a plant eater? Hippos might look like lazy, fat blobs lounging in the water, but beneath that bulky frame is a brutally fast, fiercely territorial powerhouse. So why do we still think of them as slow and harmless giants? The truth about hippos might just change everything you thought you knew about the wild dot at first glance. The hippopotamus might seem like a harmless giant and overgrown cow that lazes in the water all day, yawning beneath the African sun. But appearances are deceiving. The hippo, with its bulbous body and cartoonish proportions, is one of the most misunderstood animals in the natural world. It isn't just big. It isn't just loud. The hippo is among the most dangerous, aggressive, and territorial animals in Africa. And despite being an herbivore, it has more in common with apex predators than most people think. Weighing up to 4,000 pounds for adult males, hippos are the third largest land mammal after elephants and white rhinos. Their size alone commands attention, but it's their temperament, strength, and speed that make them truly formidable. A hippo can crush a lion with its jaws, outrun a human over short distances, and chase a boat through the water with terrifying ease. They kill more humans in Africa every year than lions, leopards, elephants, buffalo, and rhinos combined. So, how did an animal that eats grass evolve into such a dominant force? The story of the hippo begins in the water. Despite their massive size, hippos are semi-aquatic. They spend most of their day submerged in rivers, lakes, or swamps to stay cool under the relentless African heat. Their skin, despite being up to 2 inches thick in places, is extremely sensitive to sunburn and dehydration. So they've evolved a unique adaptation. Their bodies secrete a red-colored fluid that acts as both a natural sunscreen and an antibacterial agent. Early explorers once thought hippos were sweating blood, but this fluid actually protects them from infection and harsh sunlight. Hippos aren't great swimmers in the traditional sense. They don't paddle or float like other aquatic animals. Instead, they walk or bounce along the bottom of rivers and lakes. They hold their breath for 5 to 7 minutes at a time and can even sleep underwater. A reflex causes their body to rise, take a breath, and submerge again without waking them. Their nostrils, eyes, and ears are placed on top of the head, allowing them to breathe, see, and hear while the rest of the body remains hidden beneath the surface. But while they seem peaceful in water, hippos are far from passive. They are fiercely territorial when it comes to their aquatic space. Males establish dominance through displays of aggression, wide yawns that show off their huge tusks, splashing, grunting, and mock charges. When these signals aren't enough, they engage in violent combat. A dominant bull will defend his stretch of river from rivals, often biting, slashing, or pushing opponents into submission. These fights can result in deep wounds or even death. Their massive canines, which can grow over a foot long, are not used for chewing plants, but for stabbing and ripping. Despite being herbivores, hippos do not eat while in the water. At night, they emerge from the river and travel up to 6 miles across land to graze. They feed mostly on grasses and consume around 80 to 100 pounds of vegetation a day. Their large mouths can hold up to 150 pounds of food, and their lips are strong enough to rip plants from the ground with ease. Unlike cows or other grazers, hippos don't chew cud, but their digestive system is adapted to process tough plant matter. Now, here's where the misconception starts. Because they eat grass and spend most of their day wallowing in water, people often assume hippos are slow, lazy, and relatively harmless. In reality, hippos are incredibly fast and agile for their size. Their physical performance is almost unmatched. On land, they can run at speeds of up to 19 to 25 miles per hour over short bursts. That's faster than the average human sprint. In water, Their ability to glide through submerged terrain gives them incredible maneuverability, and they can launch themselves upwards from the riverbed to capsize small boats or intimidate predators. That power is matched by their bite. The hippo has the strongest bite force of any land mammal, estimated at over 1,800 pounds per square inch. That's more than enough to snap a crocodile in half or crush the bones of any predator that dares get too close. In fact, Nile crocodiles, which coexist with hippos in African rivers, rarely bother them. Crocs may snatch a baby hippo if the opportunity presents itself, but an adult hippo is simply too dangerous. There are documented cases of hippos killing crocodiles outright, chasing them away from shared waters, or even biting them in half. Despite their vegetarian diet, hippos have been observed exhibiting carnivorous behavior in rare, extreme cases, scavenging meat or attacking other animals without eating them, driven by territorial aggression or stress. So why are hippos so dangerous to humans? The answer lies in their unpredictability and their strict defense of territory. People living near rivers in Africa often cross or travel along water that is home to hippos. If a human gets between a hippo and its escape route back to water, or surprises a hippo hidden in reeds, the animal may charge. Canoes, boats, and fishermen are frequent victims. A hippo can lunge from below and flip a boat with ease, biting anything within range. With little warning, they can go from completely still to full-blown attack mode. Unlike predators like lions, who stalk and signal their intent, hippos can be utterly silent before striking. Their aggression isn't limited to the water. Hippos have also been known to invade villages, destroy crops, and even attack people or livestock near their grazing routes. And while bulls are notoriously territorial in water, females are even more dangerous on land when protecting their calves. A mother hippo will attack anything she perceives as a threat, including people, boats, or other animals, even if the threat is unintentional. Yet despite their aggression, hippos are also incredibly social. They live in groups called pods, herds, or bloats, typically consisting of 10 to 30 individuals, though groups of over 100 have been observed. These groups usually revolve around a dominant male, with several females and their young. Males constantly monitor their territory, engaging in posturing and challenges from rival bulls. Communication within the pod is highly developed. Hippos vocalize through grunts, bellows, wheezes, and snorts, even producing sounds underwater. Their wheeze honk is so distinctive that researchers can identify individuals by the tone and pattern. One of the most bizarre and unique aspects of hippo behavior is their method of marking territory. Males often defecate while spinning, their tails rapidly, flinging feces in all directions. This acts as a warning to other males and a scent marker to maintain boundaries. It may seem crude, but it's surprisingly effective at establishing control. From an evolutionary perspective, hippos are part of the order Artiodactyla, or even-toed ungulates, which includes deer, pigs, and cattle. However, their closest living relatives are not cows or pigs, but whales. About 55 million years ago, both whales and hippos shared a common semi-aquatic ancestor. This explains some of their shared traits: the ability to hold breath underwater, subcutaneous fat for buoyancy, and insulation and complex sound communication. Over time, whales adapted fully to marine life, while hippos returned to freshwater habitats and retained aspects of both land and aquatic existence. Their population is currently spread across sub-Saharan Africa, with the largest numbers found in countries like Zambia, Tanzania, and Mozambique. There are two species of hippo: the common or river hippopotamus, Hippopotamus amphibius, and the pygmy hippopotamus, Chiropsis liberiensis, a far smaller and more elusive relative found in the forests of West Africa. The pygmy hippo is solitary, more terrestrial, and much less aggressive, but it's also endangered. With only a few thousand individuals remaining in the wild, conservation efforts for hippos are a growing concern. While the common hippo is listed as vulnerable by the IUCN, its population is decreasing due to habitat loss, conflict with humans, and poaching. Hippos are hunted for their meat, hides, and ivory-like teeth. Their large canines and incisors are made of dense ivory that is often sought after illegally, particularly as elephant ivory becomes more regulated. Additionally, as human populations expand into river areas, the conflict between hippos and communities intensifies, especially when hippos trample crops or threaten fishing communities. Despite these challenges, hippos remain a vital part of their ecosystem. As grazers, they help shape vegetation on land, and their constant movement in rivers stirs up nutrients that support aquatic life. Their dung plays a role in fertilizing river systems, though excessive concentrations near high-density ponds can lead to oxygen depletion and fish die-offs, especially during drought. In modern culture, the hippo is often portrayed in a misleading light. Whether it's in cartoons, children's books, or internet memes, hippos are typically seen as cute, jiggly animals that dance or sing, but the reality is much more complex and far more fascinating. They are ancient survivors, perfectly adapted to a life between land and water. They are territorial warriors, capable of immense destruction, but also highly social creatures with intricate group dynamics. And they are misunderstood giants, seemingly slow, but shockingly fast. Seemingly peaceful, but secretly deadly. Understanding the true nature of hippos helps us appreciate not only their power and danger, but also their importance. They are a species balanced on the edge, revered by some, feared by others, and threatened by the changing world around them. The next time you see a hippo yawn in the sun, remember, it's not boredom. It's a warning. That gaping mouth isn't for chewing, it's for crushing. And while they don't hunt like lions or stalk like leopards, hippos have carved out their own kingdom one, defined not by what they eat, but by what they dominate. In the rivers of Africa, the hippo reigns supreme, not as a predator, but as a power of nature itself. When examining the deeper evolutionary path of the hippopotamus, what stands out most is its divergence from expectations. Despite looking like a land mammal with a penchant for water, hippos are genetically closer to whales and dolphins than to any terrestrial herbivores. Both groups descended from a semi-aquatic ancestor that lived around 55 million years ago. This ancestor likely had hooves, spent a good amount of time in the water, and fed on aquatic plants. As the lineage split, one group adapted to life in the open oceans and became fully aquatic cetaceans, while the other remained tied to fresh water environments and evolved into modern-day hippos. This ancestry is reflected in the hippo's biology. Like whales, hippos give birth and nurse in water. Their bones are unusually dense, an adaptation called pachyostosis that helps them stay grounded underwater instead of floating. Their lungs are designed for long breath holds. Even there, sound communication has underwater capabilities. But unlike whales, hippos never abandon the land entirely. They must return to graze, walk, and breed in certain conditions. This dual reliance on water and land makes them incredibly unique, caught halfway between two worlds. Culturally, hippos have long held a place in human mythology and symbolism, particularly in ancient African and Egyptian societies. In Egyptian mythology, the goddess Tauret was a protective deity of childbirth and fertility, depicted with the body of a pregnant hippo, the limbs of a lion, and the back of a crocodile. Hippos, which were common along the Nile, inspired awe and fear, while female hippos were seen as nurturing symbols of motherhood due to their strong maternal instincts. Male hippos were often hunted or feared due to their aggression. In more modern times, the image of the hippo shifted. It became anthropomorphized, turned into a comical figure in films and cartoons. Think of Fantasia's ballet dancing hippos, or the happy hippos from Kinder Snacks. But in many parts of Africa, where human settlements overlap with hippo habitats, these animals are no laughing matter. Rural farmers have had crops destroyed, relatives killed, and property damaged by hippos, who wander too close to human territory. One of the most fascinating areas of hippo behavior is reproduction. Unlike many mammals, hippos mate and give birth in water. The process of mating is highly aggressive. A dominant male will assert control over a section of river and attempt to mate with any receptive female in the group. If she's not receptive, he may chase or bite until she submits or escapes. Females give birth after about 8 months of gestation, usually to a single calf weighing between 50 and 100 pounds. Births take place underwater, though the mother immediately pushes the newborn to the surface for its first breath. The bond between a hippo mother and her calf is strong. She will keep the baby close at all times, even separating from the pod if necessary to protect the infant during its first days of life. Nursing occurs underwater, with the calf closing its nostrils and ears to suckle. Calves often ride on their mothers' backs while she moves through the water, and older calves are known to play with others in their age group. These play behaviors aren't just endearing, they're critical for developing social skills that will help them navigate the complex dynamics of hippo society. Male calves have a much harder road. Once they reach adolescence, they begin to feel the pressure of the social hierarchy. Dominant bulls tolerate young males for only so long. Around age 7 or 8, they may be forced to leave the group entirely and live on the fringes of the river or in bachelor groups with other displaced males. Only the strongest will eventually win the right to control a pod of their own, often through brutal battles with rival males. These fights can include headbutting, biting, and jaw-to-jaw clashes where they open their mouths almost 180 degrees wide. Scars and broken tusks are badges of experience. The hierarchy within a pod is fluid. While one bull may be dominant, challenges can come at any time. Old bulls may be ousted by younger, stronger rivals. Injured or weakened males are often quickly deposed. Within the female ranks, dominance is less rigid, but still present. Older, more experienced mothers often have priority access to resources, while younger females may be pushed to the edges of the group. Calves of dominant mothers are more likely to survive, especially if the pod is under pressure from environmental stress or competition. While hippos are often solitary grazers at night, their social interactions during the day are filled with complexity. They engage in vocalizations, body language, and postural displays to communicate. Their infamous yawning gesture, which exposes their massive jaws and teeth, is a visual warning usually used to intimidate rivals or intruders. Submissive. Individuals respond by lowering their heads or retreating. These signals help avoid constant fighting, which could be costly to both parties. But hippo communication goes beyond visuals. They produce a range of vocalizations, both above and below. Water. One of the most unique is their ability to duet across the air-water boundary, making a series of calls that are heard simultaneously in 2 environments. This may help individuals maintain contact across a large body of water, or even eavesdrop on neighboring pods. The vocalizations can include bellows, honks, squeals, and grunts. In fact, their wheeze honk is so loud that it can be heard over a mile away. Intelligence in hippos is an area still under research, but evidence suggests they possess strong spatial memory and problem-solving abilities. They remember pathways between feeding grounds and water, avoid obstacles, and can recognize individual members of their group. Captive hippos have shown the ability to learn behaviors, distinguish between human cues, and interact with zookeepers in relatively sophisticated ways. However, their temperament and size make formal training difficult. Unlike elephants or dolphins, they're far more aggressive and less tolerant of close human interaction. Another rare but significant behavior in hippos is infanticide. In some cases, newly dominant males have been observed killing the offspring of rival bulls. This behavior, while disturbing, is known in many mammal species and serves to bring females back into estrus more quickly, allowing the new male to pass on his genes. While not common, this adds another layer to the already dangerous world that hippos inhabit. Mothers are hypervigilant in the presence of bulls, especially new ones. Hippos also interact with other species in fascinating ways. One well-documented phenomenon is their sometimes surprisingly tolerant behavior towards certain birds and fish. Oxpeckers and other birds are often seen sitting on the backs of hippos, feeding on parasites and dead skin. Some fish species clean hippo skin by eating algae or debris, forming a kind of loose mutualistic relationship. But this tolerance is fragile. Hippos can quickly go from passive to aggressive if they feel threatened. There are even rare reports of hippos showing what seems to be empathy or curiosity. For instance, there are stories of hippos rescuing other animals from drowning or intervening in crocodile attacks on antelope, though it's unclear if these are intentional acts of altruism or simple reactions to motion and splashing in their territory. More likely, they're highly territorial and respond aggressively to any commotion that disturbs their river, regardless of who is involved. Human-hippo conflict is a growing issue. As African populations expand and rivers are increasingly used for fishing, farming, and transportation, encounters with hippos become more frequent. In regions where hippos were once protected, rising poverty and limited enforcement have led to increased hunting. Some communities see hippos as pests, while others depend on the river for survival. This tension is difficult to navigate. Conservationists work with local leaders to find solutions, including fencing, buffer zones, and education programs that teach villagers how to recognize hippo behavior and avoid confrontations. In places like Uganda, Tanzania, and Zambia, ecotourism has offered an alternative path. Hippos are a major draw for safari tours and river expeditions. Their presence generates revenue that can help fund protected areas and support local jobs. However, this too comes with risk. Tourists often underestimate how fast and aggressive a hippo can be. There are cases of boats being capsized or guides attacked after getting too close for a better photo. The rule is simple: admire from a distance. In water, the hippo is king. One particularly unusual story in recent history was that of Pablo Escobar's hippos. In the 1980s, the infamous Colombian drug lord imported exotic animals for his private zoo, including 4 hippos. After his death, the animals were abandoned and eventually escaped into the wild. With no natural predators and abundant water, they thrived. Today, dozens of cocaine hippos roam Colombia's Magdalena River basin. While some view them as invasive threats, others see them as a strange legacy of human interference in nature. Their presence has triggered debates about invasive species, ecological impact, and whether humans should attempt to control or coexist with non-native megafauna as we zoom out. The story of the hippo is both ancient and urgent. They are among Earth's last remaining megafauna giants that once roamed in far greater numbers and variety. Like elephants, rhinos, and giraffes, hippos are reminders of a world where size and strength shaped evolution. Yet unlike most herbivores, the hippo has retained a level of aggression and dominance more often associated with carnivores. Its existence defies classification. It is a grazer that can kill lions, a peaceful swimmer that can destroy boats, a loving mother that can become a deadly force in an instant. Understanding hippos requires putting aside assumptions and embracing the contradictions. They are both elegant and brutal, clumsy on land, yet swift enough to chase off predators. Herbivores, yet responsible for hundreds of deaths each year. Social animals, yet fiercely territorial. They are reminders that nature doesn't follow neat categories, and that every creature is shaped by pressures we may not always see. The future of hippos will depend on how humans choose to interact with them. Will we allow them space to live, graze, and raise their young in peace? Or will encroachment, hunting, and misunderstanding continue to erode their numbers? For now, the rivers of Africa still echo with their honks and bellows. Their eyes still rise above the reeds to scan the horizon, and their massive forms still glide silently beneath the surface unseen, but never to be underestimated to truly understand the hippopotamus. It's necessary to look at their biology, not just through the lens of power and aggression, but through the many subtle adaptations that allow them to dominate their niche. Their unique physiology is a blueprint for survival. Every feature, no matter how strange, is a product of environmental pressure and evolutionary trial. Take their skin, for example. It's among the most unusual of any large land animal. Despite its enormous thickness, it lacks sweat glands. Instead of sweating, hippos secrete a viscous reddish substance, often dubbed blood sweat. In reality, it's neither blood nor sweat. This secretion acts as a natural sunblock and has antimicrobial properties, helping heal wounds and prevent infection in a muddy, bacteria-rich environment. When exposed to sunlight, this secretion turns a rusty red, giving the appearance of bleeding. It's a clever solution to a very real problem. How does a near-hairless, water-dependent giant survive under a blistering tropical sun without constant skin damage? Another little-known adaptation is the placement and function of their sensory organs. Because hippos spend most of their time submerged, their eyes, ears, and nostrils are all located high on the head. This allows them to see, hear, and breathe, while the rest of their massive body remains hidden below the surface. They can close their nostrils and ears while submerged, preventing water from entering during dives. Their eyes come equipped with a protective membrane that shields them. Underwater, like built-in goggles. These specialized features help the hippo maintain constant environmental awareness, which is vital in the contested territories of Africa's rivers. Internally, hippos have a 3-chambered stomach, which is unusual for an herbivore of their size. Unlike ruminants such as cows, they do not regurgitate cud. Instead, their digestion involves a process of microbial fermentation that breaks down plant material in a similar, though not identical, way. Their diet, consisting mainly of short grasses, is not highly diverse, yet it's extremely high volume. Despite their tremendous appetite, they are surprisingly selective feeders, preferring certain grass types and avoiding taller, less digestible varieties. One of the most remarkable aspects of their internal function is their ability to thermoregulate in hot environments. Hippos rarely suffer from overheating, thanks to their semi-aquatic behavior and the cooling properties of water. But when droughts hit and rivers shrink, their bodies can become dangerously exposed. During these times, hippos become more irritable, and territorial battles grow fiercer as individuals compete for what little water remains. This environmental stress can cause ripple effects, not just for hippos, but for the entire river ecosystem. The role hippos play in shaping their environment is complex and still being studied. Their daily habits affect everything from soil erosion to aquatic nutrient cycles. As they move between water and land, they create trails that channel rainwater and reshape terrain. Their dung is a major source of nutrients for riverine systems, feeding everything from fish to insect larvae. However, too much hippo dung can be destructive. In places where hippo populations are unnaturally dense, either due to habitat fragmentation or human interference, massive accumulations of feces can lead to oxygen depletion in water, resulting in fish kills and algal blooms. This dual impact being both ecosystem engineers and potential disruptors highlights just how influential they are. A single pod of hippos can dictate the health of an entire stretch of river. During droughts, hippos dig out wallows in riverbeds, creating microhabitats that sustain aquatic life through dry spells. Fish take refuge in these wallows, and birds gather to feed. When the rains return, these zones become nurseries for a surge of new life. In this way, the hippo's very presence supports the biodiversity of its environment. But when the natural balance is upset, either by population booms, habitat destruction, or pollution, the hippo's impact can tip toward the negative. This makes conservation planning especially challenging. Reducing numbers in one area might help fish, but hurt predators that rely on hippos as ecological buffers. Leaving them unchecked in overpopulated zones can lead to water degradation. Effective management requires detailed understanding of each ecosystem's carrying capacity and close cooperation with local communities. Part of the mystery of the hippo lies in its silence. For an animal so loud when vocalizing, it is otherwise remarkably stealthy. Hippos can move through water with near-complete silence, barely creating ripples. On land, despite their bulk, they are surprisingly quiet. Their feet, padded and webbed, distribute weight across soft surfaces, helping them tread almost silently across muddy banks and grassy plains. This stealth allows them to approach grazing zones without attracting attention, and explains why so many unfortunate encounters between hippos and humans begin with surprise. There are documented cases of hippos sneaking into farmland under cover of darkness, decimating fields of maize or millet in a single night. Farmers wake to find half a year's harvest flattened and fouled. This has led to increasing resentment in some communities, especially in regions where economic stability depends on small-scale agriculture. Yet even here, it's important. Recognize that hippos are not acting out of malice. They are simply following ancient migratory patterns that, for millennia, brought them through these lands without conflict. It's only with expanding human development that paths have begun to intersect in deadly ways. One growing area of research is the psychological behavior of hippos under stress. In areas where water levels drop too quickly or pods are overcrowded, aggression spikes. Infants are more likely to be trampled or abandoned. Mothers become more defensive. Males engage in increasingly violent battles, sometimes over females, sometimes merely for space. Stress-related behavior includes increased yawning, mock charges, and disrupted sleeping patterns. Hippos may also exhibit pacing movements short, repeated laps through water that resemble the stereotypical signs of captivity-induced stress in zoo animals. In fact, captivity poses a unique challenge for hippos. Due to their size, strength, and territorial nature, they are notoriously difficult to manage. Enclosures must be reinforced with thick barriers and deep moats. Pools must be large enough to allow full submersion and provide escape zones. Many zoos and sanctuaries now follow strict enrichment protocols to reduce boredom and stress. This includes varied diets, environmental changes, and puzzle feeders. Some facilities even allow public viewing of training sessions where keepers use protective barriers and long-handled tools to engage with the animals. Training is done entirely through positive reinforcement. Punishment is ineffective and dangerous. There have also been efforts to study the cognitive capacity of hippos in controlled environments. While not as problem-solving oriented as elephants, or as socially complex as primates, hippos do exhibit memory, learning, and recognition. They remember familiar humans, show preference for certain objects, and display anticipation when presented with routine feeding or enrichment cues. However, their tendency toward territorial aggression makes experimental testing extremely limited compared to other large mammals. Public fascination with hippos remains strong, partly due to their contradictory nature. They've become internet icons, thanks to viral videos, memes, and slow-motion footage of yawning giants or underwater bubble trails. But this pop culture image rarely reflects their actual danger. Even experienced guides tread carefully around hippo territory. Most safari operators keep strict buffer distances when hippos are present. Infrared camera footage from conservation areas often reveals just how silently and efficiently hippos move at night, graceful shadows slipping between moonlit trees and reeds. Always aware, always on edge. One of the most surprising recent discoveries involves the sounds hippos make and the possibility of vocal signatures. Much like dolphins and elephants, hippos may have individual vocal patterns that allow members of a pod to recognize each other. These patterns, researchers suggest, may be a way to establish identity across distances or during conflict. The possibility of vocal names among hippos has generated excitement in bioacoustic circles. If true, it would add yet another layer of intelligence to an already fascinating species. Another intriguing subject is the pygmy hippopotamus, a species so different from its larger cousin that many people don't even realize it exists. Native to the rainforests and swamps of West Africa, the pygmy hippo weighs between 350 and 600 pounds, roughly 1/10 the size of the common hippo. Unlike its cousin, the pygmy hippo is shy, solitary, and nocturnal. It spends much less time in water, and its skin is more adapted to terrestrial living. Sightings in the wild are rare, and much of what we know comes from captive studies and field camera traps. Pygmy hippos are also critically endangered. Habitat destruction, logging, and poaching have pushed their populations to the brink. Unlike the aggressive, dominant common hippo, the pygmy hippo is elusive. It does not defend territory aggressively, and its quiet, forested habitat makes it harder to monitor. Conservation efforts in Liberia and Sierra Leone have begun to increase focus on this unique animal, but success depends heavily on maintaining intact forest corridors and minimizing human-wildlife conflict in rural areas. Symbolism of hippos in art and literature has also evolved over time. In African folklore, the hippo is sometimes seen as a trickster or a misunderstood beast. In modern media, they have become beloved icons of contradiction, gentle yet fearsome, comical yet commanding. Few animals have inspired such a split-in perception. They can be turned into dancing characters in children's shows, and yet featured in documentaries about Africa's most lethal animals. This tension makes them endlessly fascinating. They are not villains or heroes, but ancient forces, shaped by millennia of river and sundot. As climate change intensifies, hippos face new threats. More frequent droughts reduce the size and quality of rivers and lakes. Higher temperatures place further strain on their sensitive skin. In some areas, rising water levels caused by unpredictable rainfall patterns can disrupt breeding cycles and isolate populations. Habitat fragmentation, driven by both climate and development, reduces access to traditional grazing paths and river systems. Genetic diversity could decline as isolated pods become less able to interbreed. International conservation organizations now classify hippos as vulnerable, with population estimates ranging between 115,000 and 130,000 individuals. However, precise data is difficult to collect due to their elusive and aquatic nature. Some populations are stable, particularly in large protected areas like Zambia's Luangwa Valley. Others are in sharp decline. Poaching for ivory-like teeth has increased in recent years, especially as restrictions on elephant ivory push illegal trade toward alternative sources. Despite these challenges, there is hope. Community-based conservation projects are expanding. Education efforts are reducing the myth that hippos are simply water cows with no threat. New technologies like GPS collars, drone surveillance, and acoustic monitoring are helping researchers track and protect pods. Hippos are resilient. They have survived for millions of years. But their survival in the 21st century will depend on whether humans learn to respect the space and danger they represent. In the end, what makes the hippo truly extraordinary is not just its size or aggression, but its balance. It is an animal that moves between worlds, between land and water, between the image of a gentle grazer and a fearsome defender. It is a creature of paradoxes, and in that, it reflects the wildness of nature itself. Powerful, peaceful, violent, noble. The hippo is all these things and more. There is something strikingly ancient about hippos. Watching them rise silently from the water, their bulk almost surreal in its smooth motion, is like witnessing a fragment of prehistoric time still walking the earth. Unlike most megafauna, the hippo hasn't drastically changed in tens of thousands of years. Its current form is almost identical to fossil specimens found from the Pleistocene epoch. This lack of evolutionary change speaks to its near-perfect adaptation. When an animal is so well suited to its environment, nature rarely forces further change. Despite their rough temperament and solitary nighttime habits, hippos are anything but antisocial. Their social lives are subtle, but complex. In pods, interactions happen constantly, from juveniles mock fighting to mothers nudging calves gently toward the shade of overhanging trees. Young males often gather in loosely organized bachelor groups, where they practice the displays and dominance rituals they'll later use in adulthood. Some of these behaviors seem playful, chasing fish, play biting, or tossing their heads, but they are foundational in developing the skills necessary for survival and competition later. In life, older dominant males live a very different life. The dominant bull of a pod must remain constantly vigilant. He patrols the water's edges, positions himself between rival males and females, and responds aggressively to intruders. His reign is never secure. Challenges from younger males are frequent, and fights can happen suddenly and without obvious provocation. These clashes are dramatic, loud, violent, and often bloody, yet they're also highly ritualized. Each movement, from the widening of the jaws to the churning of the tail in feces, is a form of communication, designed to escalate only when absolutely necessary. Not all interactions are hostile. In fact, hippos exhibit signs of affiliation and comfort with specific individuals. Calves often form bonds with one another, showing preference for particular playmates. Mothers sometimes assist other calves in trouble, though whether this is true altruism or an extension of general maternal instinct is still debated. What's clear is that social cohesion matters. Pods are not just random aggregations. They're structured, hierarchical, and regulated through a combination of dominance and familiarity. Outside of their own species, hippos interact with a surprising number of other animals. Crocodiles are the most obvious. While they share rivers and banks, the two species maintain a wary coexistence. Crocodiles often bask on the same sandbars as hippos, but they're careful not to get too close. The power of a hippo's bite is enough to crush a croc's skull. When threatened, hippos will kill crocodiles without hesitation, and young crocs sometimes fall victim to defensive mothers or aggressive bulls. However, adult hippos and crocodiles usually maintain an unspoken truce, each respecting the danger the other presents. On rare occasions, footage has shown crocodiles attempting to steal scraps from dead animals near hippos, only to be chased away with a single lunge. Even more rare are the instances where hippos initiate unprovoked aggression, launching themselves into a basking group of crocs, biting and flipping them for no clear reason. These moments are a reminder of how unpredictable and fearsome hippo behavior can be. Other animals share more peaceful relationships with hippos. Fish, for instance, benefit greatly from the presence of hippos. Their dung feeds algae, which in turn supports insect larvae and small aquatic species. Some fish even clean the hippo's body by nibbling dead skin and parasites, an interaction that appears tolerated, if not welcomed. Birds such as oxpeckers and herons also perch on hippos, feeding on ticks and flies. These mutualistic relationships are rarely disrupted, even during moments of hippo irritation. It's as though the hippo recognizes their value, or simply doesn't see them as threats worth reacting to. But the most unusual recorded behavior involving hippos comes from rare instances of what looks like interspecies empathy. In some cases, observers have seen hippos intervene in predator-prey situations. In Kenya, a hippo was filmed chasing a lion away from a drowning wildebeest. In another, a hippo tried to rescue a baby antelope being dragged by a crocodile. While it's tempting to romanticize these as acts of compassion, biologists remain cautious. It's possible that hippos are simply responding to movement and noise in their territory, reacting to stress or conflict in a way that seems altruistic but isn't. More credibly, these reactions may stem from the hippo's overwhelming need to control its environment. Any splash, scream, or frantic motion in its domain could be interpreted as a disruption, something that must be silenced or chased away. That doesn't mean hippos are incapable of emotion. It simply highlights how differently they perceive and react to their world. In captivity, hippos have demonstrated surprising recognition of their human caretakers. They can distinguish between individuals, remember specific feeding routines, and respond to simple commands when trained through positive reinforcement. But they also remain wild at heart. There are many tragic accounts of captive hippos turning violent with little warning, even after years of docility. Their moods can shift rapidly, and their territorial instincts persist regardless of environment. For this reason, they are rarely used in circuses or performance shows. The risk is simply too great. One particularly famous captive hippo, named Owen, gained worldwide attention after being orphaned during a tsunami and placed in a Kenyan wildlife sanctuary. There, he formed a strong bond with a 130-year-old male tortoise named Mzee. The two were inseparable for months, grazing together, sleeping side by side, and even attempting to communicate through body language. This interspecies relationship defied explanation, charming millions and sparking debates about attachment, imprinting, and trauma. While eventually Owen was introduced to other hippos, his early connection with Mzee remains one of the most heartwarming and mysterious examples of hippo behavior. As hippos continue to face challenges from habitat loss and climate change, researchers are ramping up efforts to map their genetics. Understanding the genetic diversity of hippo populations is critical to future conservation. Isolated groups, especially those cut off by development or climate pressures, may suffer from inbreeding, reduced fertility, or increased susceptibility to disease. By analyzing DNA from dung and tissue samples, scientists are building a clearer picture of hippo lineages across Africa. This data can help conservationists plan better. If a small population in Malawi is found to be genetically distinct, protecting its habitat becomes a higher priority. If two river systems in different countries host hippos with overlapping genetic markers, conservationists may push for transboundary parks or corridors that allow natural movement and interbreeding. In this way, genetics is becoming as vital to hippo conservation as anti-poaching patrols or habitat management. One of the ongoing debates in wildlife management is whether humans should intervene in natural population controls. In areas with too many hippos, some governments consider culling as a way to reduce environmental damage and prevent human conflict. Others argue for relocation, though this is costly, difficult, and stressful for the animals. Birth control through Hormone-laced food or darts has been tested in small populations, but results are mixed and controversial. Ultimately, each solution comes with trade-offs. None are perfect, and all require careful consideration of long-term impacts. But while governments debate policies and scientists map DNA, the hippos themselves continue their ancient rhythms. They rise at dusk, graze under moonlight, return before sunrise. They wallow, grunt, spar, and protect. To live as a hippo is to live in cycles territory, defense, reproduction, feeding. The simplicity of their routine masks the complexity of their influence. They reshape ecosystems, balance food chains, and quietly dominate the water's edge. And humans, despite our technology and fences, are never far from their reach. Every year, stories emerge of hippos attacking fishermen, flipping boats, charging. Safari trucks. Tourists are often surprised to learn that in much of Africa, locals fear hippos far more than lions. A lion must stalk. A lion waits. But a hippo? A hippo charges without warning. It attacks without hesitation. Its violence is not about hunger, it's about control. This is what makes the hippo so uniquely terrifying. Its danger doesn't stem from malice or desperation. It comes from confidence. The hippo knows its strength. It has no need to bluff. When it opens its mouth, it's not threatening, it's promising. And in that moment, there is no predator more certain, no herbivore more terrifying. Yet despite this fearsome reputation, hippos also symbolize resilience. They've lived through climate shifts, survived ice ages, and endured the pressures of modern humanity better than many other large mammals. They've adapted to shrinking rivers, cohabited with invasive species, and found ways to thrive in environments altered by agriculture and industry. Their continued existence is a testament not only to strength, but to adaptability. The hippo remains one of the most fascinating paradoxes in the animal kingdom. It is ancient, yet highly modern in its survival strategies. It is herbivorous, yet dominates predators. It is slow in appearance, yet capable of incredible speed and aggression. It lives with others, yet tolerates no challenge to its space. It has inspired gods in cartoons, fears and affection, wonder and wariness. The human fascination with hippos shows no signs of fading. As long as there are rivers in Africa and eyes that watch for shadows under the surface, the myth and reality of the hippo will continue to evolve. From ancient stone carvings to thermal drone footage, our view of this animal has changed, but the animal itself has not. It remains, as it always has, a colossal mystery wrapped in muscle and mud dot. So the next time you see a hippo in a wildlife video or behind reinforced glass at a zoo, remember, you're looking at more than just an oversized water cow. You're witnessing the living legacy of ancient Earth, an animal so powerful that predators give way, so fierce that humans build entire river towns around avoiding its wrath, and so essential to its environment that entire ecosystems bend around its presence. In the end, the hippo is more than a beast. It's a force of nature, equal parts grace, terror, mystery, and survival. And it doesn't care if we understand it, because understanding isn't required for dominance. Silence, patience, and power are enough. To truly understand the hippo, we need to go back millions of years to its origins. Despite their barrel-shaped bodies and grazing habits, hippos are not closely related to other large herbivores like rhinos or elephants. In fact, their closest living relatives are whales. Genetic and fossil evidence suggests that both whales and hippos descended from a common ancestor that lived around 50 to 60 million years ago. A four-legged, semi-aquatic creature called Pachysodus. Over time, one branch adapted fully to life in the ocean, becoming whales and dolphins, while the other settled into freshwater rivers and lakes, becoming modern hippos. This evolutionary link is more than just a curiosity. It helps explain many of the hippo's strange features. Their eyes, ears, and nostrils are placed high on the skull, just like early aquatic mammals, allowing them to breathe and observe while mostly submerged. Their ability to hold their breath for several minutes and sink to walk along riverbeds also mirrors the diving capabilities of whales. Even their vocalizations, grunts, bellows, and low-frequency rumbles travel well both above and below water, much like whale songs echoing through the ocean. But while whales escaped land entirely, hippos remained bound to both worlds. This dual existence shaped everything about them. Their massive bodies serve as natural ballast in water and protection from predators on land. Their thick skin, constantly moisturized and covered in mucus-like secretions, is a kind of armor resistant to water loss, sunburn, and parasites. Their grazing habits evolved to exploit grasses near water bodies, minimizing the distance they need to travel each night. Yet this delicate balance between land and water makes hippos vulnerable to environmental change. As wetlands shrink and rivers dry due to climate change and human activity, hippos are increasingly squeezed into smaller habitats. In some areas, this leads to overcrowding and conflict, not just among hippos, but with nearby human populations. In others, it fragments populations, isolating groups that were once part of a larger gene pool. This fragmentation is particularly dangerous for a species that relies on access to large, permanent bodies of water. Hippos cannot survive without regular immersion. Their skin cracks and overheats without water. They also need expansive grazing territory to support their nightly feeding. When water sources are diverted for irrigation or dammed for energy, hippos often lose both their homes and their food supply. Human encroachment has only intensified these pressures. As agriculture expands and riverside communities grow, people and hippos are coming into contact, more often with deadly consequences. Hippos raid crops, destroy boats, and occasionally kill people. In return, farmers retaliate with traps, firearms, and poisoned bait. These escalating conflicts are some of the most difficult challenges in African wildlife management today. What complicates matters further is the legal status of hippos. In many countries, they are protected under wildlife conservation laws, yet exceptions are made when they threaten human livelihoods. Poaching also remains a significant issue, particularly for their teeth, which are made of ivory-like dentin and often sold illegally as a substitute for elephant ivory. Unlike elephant ivory, hippo teeth are harder to trace, making them a preferred target for illicit markets. These threats have not yet pushed hippos to the brink, but their numbers are declining. According to the IUCN Red List, the common hippopotamus is classified as vulnerable, with populations decreasing across much of their range. The pygmy hippo, a smaller, forest-dwelling cousin found in West Africa, is in even more danger, and is listed as endangered. Its elusive nature and shrinking habitat make it one of the most difficult large mammals to study and protect. Efforts to save hippos require a multi-pronged approach. On one hand, habitat protection is essential, maintaining healthy river systems, protecting wetlands, and establishing corridors that allow hippos to move freely between territories. On the other, community engagement is crucial. Many conservation programs now involve local people directly in the management of wildlife, offering incentives for coexistence and education about the ecological importance of hippos. In some areas, ecotourism plays a helpful role. When managed responsibly, wildlife tourism can provide jobs and income that reduce the incentive for poaching or retaliation killings. Tourists drawn to see hippos in their natural habitat may not realize that their presence is helping fund rangers, pay for water management, and support community projects. However, this model is fragile, reliant on stability, infrastructure, and global interest. When crises like pandemics or political unrest disrupt travel, Funding for these programs often disappears beyond Africa. Hippos have also made headlines in some very unexpected places, most notably Colombia. In the 1980s, infamous drug lord Pablo Escobar imported several hippos for his private zoo. After his death, the animals were abandoned and eventually escaped into the wild. Today, more than 100 hippos roam freely along the Magdalena River, forming the only wild population outside Africa. While they have become a bizarre tourist attraction and internet sensation, they also pose serious ecological risks, disrupting local ecosystems and threatening native species. Efforts to manage the Colombian hippos have sparked fierce debate. Some scientists advocate for their removal or sterilization, citing the long-term danger of an invasive species. Others argue that the population is already too large to control and suggest embracing their presence as a new part of the landscape. The situation raises deep questions about conservation ethics, human responsibility, and the boundaries between. Wild and artificial ecosystems. Culturally, hippos have held a wide range of symbolic meanings across time and civilizations. In ancient Egypt, the goddess Tauret, protector of fertility and childbirth, was often depicted with the body of a pregnant hippopotamus, symbolizing strength, protection, and motherhood. Yet male hippos were seen as destructive forces and associated with chaos. This duality, creation and destruction, is a recurring theme in how humans perceive the hippodot in African folklore. The hippo is often a trickster or a humble character, sometimes mocked for its size, but always revealing hidden power or wisdom. In more modern times, hippos have been reduced to comedic roles in popular media. Characters like Gloria from Madagascar or the dancing hippos in Disney's Fantasia play on the absurdity of grace in such a large creature. Even children's songs and toys portray hippos as cuddly and harmless, an image that stands. In stark contrast to the reality dot, this mismatch between perception and reality has consequences. When people think of hippos as funny, slow, or cute, they're less likely to take them seriously as a conservation priority. They may also underestimate the danger hippos pose in the wild. Many fatal hippo attacks occur because people assume the animals are passive or unaggressive. In truth, they are among the most territorial animals on Earth, more than willing to chase, bite, and kill when provoked or startled. Understanding the real nature of the hippo requires a shift in mindset. They are not lazy giants or aquatic cows. They are strategic, aggressive, highly adapted animals with an essential ecological role. Their presence keeps vegetation in check, fertilizes water systems, and shapes the flow of rivers through their movements and behavior. Remove hippos from a river system, and everything from fish to insects to bird populations could suffer at the same time. We must acknowledge that hippos are not easy neighbors. They can be destructive, unpredictable, and dangerous. Conservation cannot ignore the risks they pose to human communities. It must find ways to balance protection with public safety through fencing, designated water zones, compensation programs, and collaborative planning. New technologies are offering fresh tools for this balancing act. Drones now help track hippo populations in remote areas. Satellite imaging can monitor habitat change and water levels. Acoustic sensors record vocalizations to study communication and population density. Even artificial intelligence is being used to analyze hippo behavior from camera traps and audio recordings, offering insights that would take humans years to collect. Yet, for all our scientific advances, some aspects of hippo life remain shrouded in mystery. We still don't fully understand their reproductive cycles, how calves choose friends, or why some hippos are unusually aggressive while others seem relaxed. These gaps in knowledge are both a challenge and an invitation to look closer, study more, and respect the unknown as we face a rapidly changing planet. The story of the hippo may become a symbol of what's at stake. It embodies the tension between wilderness and civilization, survival and extinction, power and vulnerability. Its continued presence reminds us that not all threats come with fangs and claws, and not all heroes of the wild need to be predators. Hippo teaches us that true dominance doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just surfaces quietly in a muddy river, watches from beneath the water, and waits. And when it moves, it does so with unstoppable force, because it doesn't need permission. It is, and has always been, the ruler of its domain. And so, the hippopotamus stands as one of nature's most misunderstood giants, often seen as sluggish or silly, but in truth, one of the most formidable and fascinating animals on the planet. From its immense power and unpredictable temper, to its vital role in shaping ecosystems, the hippo commands respect in ways few creatures do. It's a living contradiction, both gentle grazer and ruthless defender, peaceful wallower and deadly charger. In the still waters it rules. The hippo doesn't just survive, it dominates.